Good morning. This is the latest in a couple of series. One is converting the kilt made for the masculine figure to a kilt that'll fit a female figure, and also touching upon the two alterations. I've had to go back to my previous template, whatever you want to call it, method of using the video rack up here that I'd made, because when I'd reversed it so that the screen was pointed down so that I could just reach up and touch the start button, I was also reversing the image because it's the selfie mode, right? And it was just too confusing about a mirror image of a repair. Although to a left-handed person, I guess that's business as usual for us. In any case, this is the faded Mackenzie. And the reason why this is touching upon the other two alterations is that this kilt has been made properly, in that the apron is one long piece, which I'm then going to fold over. And as you can see, I've pinned it to the canvas. I've measured it to the correct width. I've retreated, shall we say, the fold of the canvas back, because we have a double layer here to give us more stability and a little bit more support in the edge of the apron. But I've rolled it back so that there's enough room for me to attach the lining later on. And I've determined how deep a fold I'm going to have, and that inside that yellow box is where I'm going to be sewing the stitches. So yeah, so in fact, I'm just going to put this up into its rack. So if you suffer from motion sickness, please close your eyes until I start speaking again. Come on, get in there. There we go. Yes, looks about right. Okay, let's see how that looks. So again, yeah, canvas is in place. And again, because this is cut or tailored to the female figure, instead of an A line that tapers to the belt line and then goes parallel, we have a continuous taper from the bottom of the fill to the top. So let's sew this down. I'm a bit dressed up today because I have a client coming by within the next hour and a half for an alteration of a kilt I made 15 years ago. So again, whenever possible, I dress up for any meeting with a client, because it's well, it's, you know, I mean, there's always an element of theater to bespoke, or any tailoring really, but certainly bespoke tailoring. And the other factor is it's showing them proper respect, dressing up in their honor, as opposed to answering the door in a stained wife beater and a pair of silkies. That sort of presents the opposite of respect. I'm using a different colored thread here because I can. It often makes it a bit easier on the eyes. And as always, the length of thread that I selected is always just a little bit too short. To an extent, that's necessary, because if you're dealing with too long a length of thread, it's much more likely to get tangled and knotted. So a 2 or even 3 lengths of shorter lengths of thread is in the end a greater economy than, both in time and material, really, certainly in time, greater economy than one long length of thread that you're having to haul hand over hand like the sheet on a sailboat. Which reminds me, if the weather warms up today, I'm going to spend part of today outside in the boat shop, because that new hull that we've built, or almost finished, requires a longer mast than the previous boat. The previous boat's mast is 8 feet, because that was the length of wood I had. But further reading and examining archived photos would indicate that the mast should more properly be the same length as the oars, which is at least 11 feet. And given that I've got some beautiful clear yellow cedar 2x2, slightly more than 2x2, in 12-foot lengths, I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay. There's that. Now the next stage would be to mount the strap, but this is a bit wasted, as in waste, as opposed, W-A-I-S-T versus W-A-S-T-E, in that this belt has been overstretched, and it is thinned a little bit in the middle, and I assume that was the late owner's, that's a result of the late owner using his kilt as a corset. But the leather is still in good condition. So, and it's also slightly wider. You can see this belt is 1 3/8 versus 1 1/4. So it's only a difference of 1/8 of an inch, but you can see it's markedly larger. And unfortunately, one buckle had been lost off this kilt, so we only have the one. So what I'm inclined, I have to take a look at my notes, because I can't remember if we'd agreed to replace both buckles or just the one. And given that, I mean, for neatness sake, I would replace both, but given that this customer is going to be wearing this kilt in memory of her father, I think I'm inclined to treat these as artifacts rather than just a buckle and a strap. So I'm going to sew the strap in place, and the buckle will go on the other hip. Now, because I had raised the strap and buckle relative to the top of the kilt, because this is again, we're tailoring to the female form, and we have that taper, I want to give the kilt a little bit of extra length. than a man's kilt by raising the strap and buckle. So in this case, we're at 2 inches rather than 2.5. So where's my new piece of chalk? There you are. So 2 inches is there. Now there's the edge of the canvas. I can center it by eye. There we go. So that's where the strap is going to attach. And if at the next meeting she says, I don't want that, well, I'll go, there we go. I had a 50% chance of getting that right. I'll just fix it. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to, oh hell, I'll just do it right now. I could just punch my saddle maker's needle through this leather, but I won't. Okay. And I'm offsetting my holes that I'm punching. I'm offsetting them from the row of machine stitch holes, because I privately fear that those machine stitch holes will act like perforations on the edge of a postage stamp and rip. So by moving my holes inboard of that, so to speak, I hope to, by avoiding the stress line, the stress line, I hope to avoid that sort of catastrophic failure. Okay. It's funny because I'll see the little punchings that fall out of the leather punch. I'll see them on the table, and my immediate response is that they're a rat dropping. Not that I've seen rats around here for a while. Okay, bit of heavy linen thread. I'm using irritatingly, the leftover piece I've got isn't quite enough. I'll keep it though, just in the sort of atavistic belief that if I hang on to the short lengths, I won't be caught short at the end of a roll. This is a proper saddle maker's, or sailmaker's needle, actually. It's a triangular in cross section for the first third of its length. Strictly speaking, I suppose any needle large enough to accept the linen through the eye should be okay, but the triangle has, because the needle isn't parallel, it swells in diameter from eye to tip, so the needle creates a larger hole than is necessary for the thread, which is much more important in sail making, but whatever. I've got a bunch of sailmaker's needles, I'll use them. And I'm sewing through and through. I'm sewing through the canvas. Okay, that stitch was a bit out of line, so I'm going to make a second stitch, which is out of line in the opposite direction. I've also failed to pull the thread right through. Okay, that's exactly what a sailmaking needle is not supposed to do. It has cut the thread. I've put the needle through the thread, which I'm not. Can we tighten now? Good. My grandfather, the saddle maker, would be horrified. Okay, there we go. We're still bang on the marks. Yeah, I'll get this front apron done today, and I think at that point I'm going to call her in for another fitting, because although I don't want to have to sew darts in the apron to accommodate her figure, it might well be necessary. And the best time to sew the darts, of course, is before the top band goes on. There we go, and one knot on the back side. Just do a second knot. Oh, after I rethread the needle. There we go. And now, there's my chalk mark right there. My chalk mark comes precisely to the line. Yay me. This is going to provide a bit of a challenge to fill stitch this, because of course it's a more profound A-line than I usually sew, and the angle of the outer part of the cloth, it is a hypotenuse, and therefore its length is different than the piece underlying. So there's a bit of manipulation and stretching and whatnot. Okay. This is going to be a bit fun because without having her here, I can't really predict. This isn't a male figure. I cannot confidently predict how the A-line is going to fall from the widest point of the hip. And perhaps when speaking of a lady, I should think of a more diplomatic term than widest part of the hip. Yeah. In fact, new plan, I'm going to loosely baste this, or frankly, just baste this and call her in for a fitting, try it onto her, and then use fall upon gravity to show me how this cloth wants to lie, because she puts it on, the drape will immediately become apparent, and having done so, then while she's wearing it, I can use her as a mannequin, a femalekin. I don't know. But by having her wear the thing, the drape will immediately present itself, and I can baste it while she's on, and then I can press it with confidence. So yeah, there we go. I'm going to temporarily, just for the sake of an intellectual exercise, I think, because that wants to show itself right away, I think I'm going to do this. And right now, again, I'm just temporarily pinning it so I can baste what I think I'm going to see. Right? And I really don't want to even ask her if she would consent to appear in the video, because the one thing about bespoke tailoring, in fact, any tailoring, is we never, client confidentiality is absolutely paramount. We never mention the name of a client without their express permission. Okay, good. I'm going to baste that down, and then my client should be just about knocking out the door, and then following that, I'm going to send her a message and see if she can come by. What's today, Thursday? Can't remember if I'm doing it. I'm going to have to look at my calendar, of course, first, but I'll ask her to come by and we can do another trial fitting. Okay, all those of you who are motion sickness or inclined to motion sickness, close your eyes now.